Greetings, brothers and sisters. I touched on this idea of non-player characters yesterday. I was going to make a video just about that, but then I saw that headline with Jimmy Kimmel's, or I, watched that video with Jimmy Kimmel's, where he called My Pillow guy a former crackhead after kissing Hunter Biden's behind for a whole interview, and so that needed to be merged together. And so I forgot to put this in the non-player character. There's these characters in video games. I don't play video games, so, but I understand this from years ago, that there are these characters who are basically extras in the video game, right? And so they don't have, they just read from scripts. They don't have any autonomy. They're just a part of the video game. They're not, sovereign in any way. They don't have their own consciousness. And I was thinking about this in terms of some interactions I've had recently. My wife and I went on a little trip. We interacted with various demographics, people of various belief systems, and I realized so many people are just they're code, right? They're just programmed, and they don't have any sort of original thoughts, or they just believe what other people like them believe. And I'll cover that more in a second. To go with this, Newsweek, 46% want Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as president. The Rock is polling at almost 50%, as an actor and a steroid user and a wrestler, right? Professional wrestling and, an okay actor. I mean, some of the movies he's in are funny. He's got a little bit of a comedy thing going on there, but he's, certainly a Hollywood shill. And, this is what he had to say. Humbling. I don't think our founding fathers ever envisioned a 6'4", bald, tattooed, half black, half Samoan, tequila drinking, pickup driving, fanny pack wearing guy joining their club. But if it ever happens, it would be my honor to serve the people. And so let's move forward here. Biden declares a national emergency at Ukraine-Russian border, but calls back U.S. warships. Specified harmful foreign activities of the government of the Russian Federation. This is the executive order that he released. Biden declares Russia threat, national emergency, lobs sanctions, 10 diplomats booted over election meddling. So you knew this was coming because they've been talking crap about Russia, the Democrats and the media, and how Trump wouldn't do anything. So Biden had to do something. And hopefully this is just, some posturing on his part. But there could be a chance that they are pushing for World War III. They were, ramping up this rhetoric under Clinton. And we'll see how this goes and what happens with Iran as well. Because there is a chance that the Democrats and the puppet Biden are being told to push for World War III with Russia. And if that happens, it'll suck, right, for everybody. Sarah Paulson debuts pink hair for American Horror Story Season 10. This is apparently news that there is a American Horror Story, a horrible show. Sarah Paulson always seems to be a part of it. There's going to be a Season 10 for some reason. I thought, after the Apocalypse one, that would be enough. And she's got pink hair, and that's news that they confirmed. Sarah Paulson character in American Horror Story double feature has pink hair. There it is. American Horror Story. I guess Britney's got some pink hair. And people are reacting to it like, wow, this is big news. And so one of my viewers sent me this. 200,000 Dodge Charger SRT Ghoul is coming. And so this is the Dodge Charger Ghoul. There's the Ghoul logo. This is the car. It's $200,000 you're paying for a Charger, which is, been ghouled up, right? It has this logo here. This is, supposed to be the Ghoul. And, many of you might know this, but I sort of resurrected the term ghoul. It's not something that I, necessarily proud of. But I called 2019 the Ghoul, the year of the Ghoul, and with Pete Davidson and um, Celine Dion emerging as ghouls, I started to see all these ghouls and all this stuff out there, right? And so now, the ghoul has been used by various people. It's a more commonly used term now. And now it's been incorporated into this overpriced charger because everybody wants to drive a ghoul. I mean, especially if you're an NPC. And then there's this Machine Gun Kelly launching nail polish line. And Machine Gun Kelly, who is, I guess, used to be a rapper and then started to sing rock music for some reason. And now he's merching up and getting into the nail polish business because, it's 2021. But then there's this. With all this stuff going on with COVID and everything that's gone on in the past year, it says here from the CDC, cases of reinfection with COVID have been reported but remain rare. Okay, so there's very few people that are getting COVID twice. And of course, with the testing having sometimes up to 50% false positives, right? I mean, they'd have to first confirm that people actually had COVID and what kind of case they had. And so if a year out, because I had COVID over a year ago, and people aren't getting it twice, well, that's significant, right? Like this is, at least a year of immunity if you get COVID, given the alternatives in terms of how long some of the alternative treatments last. And again, the option there's ways to boost your immune system and support your immune system so it reacts in a better way to anything. I've said that for years. Everyone should research and find out ways to boost their immune system because it's obviously important. It's going to play out in the future in some way, if not for COVID, for something else. Your immune system is everything in coping with, whatever's coming our way in terms of diseases and, toxins in the environment. Our immune system is really important in so many different ways. In general, reinfection means a person was infected, got sick once, recovered, and then later became infected again. Based on what we know from similar viruses, some reinfections are expected. We are still learning more about COVID-19. Ongoing COVID studies will help us understand. How likely is reinfection? Well, if there isn't a lot of cases, if it's rare already, then we know that people are becoming immune to it for at least a period of, whatever period is from the time they had it till now, right? In some cases, it's a year that people aren't getting it a year out. And again, it's whether they were exposed to it or not. And so there's lots of people that got COVID 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, and they're not getting reinfected. And so there is a pretty good chance that people might be immune to this for many years or forever. I mean, right now, the fact that there's so few cases, rare cases of people getting it twice, then it means that the immune system is developing some sort of resistance to this for at least a year in many cases. And we'll see this as time progresses, but this is great news, right? It takes something that they've ramped up to an 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of being a, apocalyptic event, and it turns it into about a 2, right? You can die from it, you can get really sick from it, but it's not really, it's something if you get, you won't get it again, maybe ever. And so it's, not as big as they've been making it. Like all the reactions that have come from the COVID situation. Like again, I had a moderate to severe case and it sucked. Like I wouldn't want to get it again. And it was definitely probably the worst disease I ever got. And for the love of God, if you think, that I had the flu and you think you need to say something about it, don't. Just go somewhere else. Like and I know you're even hearing that, you're still going to want to comment because you can't control yourself. You can't help yourself because you're an NPC, right? Like you can't, you've made up your mind that COVID doesn't exist and you hear me say that I had it and you have to say something. Like you can't help yourself because you're some automated robot that has to say something. Like you can believe whatever you want. I've said this over and over again. If you want to believe COVID's the flu, God love you. It's great. I don't care. But don't tell me about it in terms of what I had or what I didn't have, right? Like, I just, it's just uncool. But in terms of like this news, I mean, I was just thinking about this. I'm like, I wonder how many people are getting it a second time. Almost nobody. It's rare. And so that means that the immune system is holding COVID off in most cases for up to a year, and maybe it's 2 years, or maybe it's 3 years. And they don't seem to really be looking into this very much, because once they discover that the immune system is working, and it's been working now for most people, 99% of people, the immune system fights this thing off. It's not that deadly a disease. But like I was saying, there was a number of interactions and things that I saw on the internet and interacting with people, and I realized how everybody identifies as being in a certain group, a certain demographic, and they all see life very similar in a very similar way. Just like there's all these people think that they're awakened in the truth community or woke or any of these things, but they haven't shifted their consciousness, right? So you grow up in a system. You grow up in America, there's an indoctrination that happens, whatever it is, right? And you're told by your school some things, your government some things, your media some things, your parents some things, and that's how you get a belief system. Your religion tells you, some things, and you have these ideas that you were given as a kid, because as a kid you just trust the adults that are teaching you. Maybe you have a oppositional, defiant type of personality or whatever it is, right? But for the most part, you believe what you're told by the adults in your life, in your world. And as you get older, that necessarily isn't the case, but in some cases it is. Like, people just believe what they were told as children their whole life, even though they see that people are liars, and they share the beliefs that they have with their family and their community and their demographics, the demographics they belong to. And, if you're a Republican, you believe one thing. If you're a Democrat, you believe something else. And, you're a Republican, you watch Fox or Newsmax or whatever, you listen to Trump. And if you're a Democrat, you watch CNN and MSNBC, and you listen to Hollywood celebrities and, whoever else, right? You are more, influenced by science, where if you're a Republican, you're more influenced by your religion. I mean, it's just, and there are these boxes that you're just supposed to check off, right? Okay, I believe this, this is what we believe. And then there's another level to this, which I now see coming into play, that people hear something, right? Oh, there's this new thing called COVID, or whatever it might be. It might be the treatment of COVID. And they look towards people like them. They look towards whatever it is, social media and people that they know. And they're like, well, what do you guys believe, right? Oh, I believe that too. So now you have everybody with this group think issue by issue, because there's been such polarization, and they don't want to ever be considered one of those other people. Like, Democrats don't want to be considered Trumpers, and Republicans don't want to be considered liberals. And there's people in the truth community that, again, I've seen this time and time again with various groups, with flat earthers, with vegans, with cubies, and with the new group that I call the flubies, right? There are people that say, oh, you had the flu, right? And so what has happened with those people is they think they know something, and they think, they've been in a groups of people that believe that they've uncovered something, or they have something that they consider factual. And even though they agree with things that I'm saying in my video, I say something that they disagree with, and they immediately get triggered. They get butthurt and they lash out. And and it's, I mean, again, they could just easily say, all right, this guy disagrees with me on this, but they have to say something, right? They just can't. Like, even if I say over and over again, I'm not interested. Like, you don't agree? Fine. You don't have to say anything, right? In fact, please don't. I'm not, I'm just going to ban you, because I don't expect you to agree with 100% with what I say. I mean, that would be stupid. Like, that's not what I'm doing here. I would be actually concerned if someone agreed with everything I say, right? I mean, at least 100%, because everyone has to have their own sovereignty, their own, point of view. I've never met anybody that I've agreed with 100% on everything. But, to have similarities and shared beliefs is important, but also each person has their own path and their own, consciousness and things. And so, all of these behaviors that I'm talking about, part of being an NPC, which to me means that the person is, doesn't have like sovereignty, right? That a person doesn't have the ability to reason for themselves. There's no autonomy, there's no individuality. They are just being plugged in to a group or a demographic, and they might switch groups, they might switch belief systems, but they're always going to do the same thing. They're just, a sense of being an automaton. There's nothing inside of them that is, an individual and awake and alive and aware. Everything is being dictated by their outside experience. And so they are reacting to stimuli that is happening to them outside, and that's programming them and causing reactions. And there's nothing inside of them that is generating a unique response or a personal response where they're just an extra in a movie, right? Their conversation is meaningless. Nobody cares about it, right? There's a couple that's the star of the movie, and they're in a restaurant having a conversation, and all the other people at all the other tables are, expendables, right? If something goes south and there's a bomb or something in the restaurant, only the couple's going to survive, something like this, right? All the other people are non-entities, right? And that's, that's how they're being viewed by the powers that be, and they're accepting that role. They're accepting that role of being an extra. And I touched on this a little bit the other day, and I want to merge these two ideas and concepts. There's something new. I don't know if anybody else has thought about this or verbalized it. I know that calling people NPCs has been a meme for a while, which I really didn't ever pick up on, but of course I had the ghoul thing. A ghoul and the zombie is another way to look at it. But then I was talking about how when you have people who don't believe in God, they believe in chaos. They believe the universe is random. There's no order, right? If you believe in God, you believe there's consciousness and a plan, that this is a blueprint, that it has order to it, that there is some divine consciousness, all-pervading consciousness that is making the universe work. There's no coincidences. There's nothing that's random. It's part of a script. It's part of a plan, a divine plan. There is, again, consciousness. I mean, that's the key word to it, that there is a consciousness behind all of creation. Whereas people who don't believe in God and are scientific in nature believe that everything's random and chaotic. And yet those people, many of them liberal, many of them progressive people who are now in control of the system, are unbelievably controlling. You understand this? There is a complete break from what their God is, because their God is chaos, right? That there's no plan, that there's just chaos in the universe, and you can't bring order to chaos. So if you're a liberal or you're some person that doesn't believe in God and you believe in chaos, you believe that there's just, it's just random, then why are you trying to control things? Like your very nature would be chaotic. Because if you think chaos is the base of all life, right, of all creation, then you should be chaotic. Then you should embrace the chaos. You're a chaos devotee, right? Just like, people who worship God worship order. And so they call this thing the New World Order, but really what it is, it should be the New World Chaos. You should embrace the chaos. Very few people embrace chaos. Very few people believe in chaos, right? In fact, if you had chaos, then there would be no language. There would be no money. There would be no, anything that has a system behind it that can be tracked and organized. There would be no routine. Everything would be random, right? Everything would be, you're going to wake up today. What are you going to do? I don't know. It's chaotic. It's chaos out there. I don't know. I might do anything. I'm not going to go to my job today, right? When you wouldn't have a job, you wouldn't have anything consistent. You wouldn't have long-term relationships. Everything would just be, one day would be one, you'd be living in Minnesota. The next day you'd be living in Hong Kong. A day after that, you're living in Spain, right? Like you wake up, you don't know where you're going to wake up, right? Like, like you're not going to be in the same place ever. I mean, there's no sense of anything. It would just be, chaos. Everything would be chaotic. You might be a human today, and tomorrow you're a mouse, right? Like, like there's no rhyme or reason or order to anything. And then when you see that there is order and there is a plan and there is divine consciousness, then you realize, and the fact that these people are the most controlling people who are, believe in chaos, but they want more control than anybody. The people who are in most control of the system, the people I call the controllers, want more control. So then it's not that they don't believe in God, not that they don't believe that there's a plan. They want to be the makers. They want to be the doers. They want to be the ones in control, right? They believe in God, but they just want God's position. They want to usurp God. They want to be the ones who are making the decisions. They want to be the ones in control of the universe, right? The great usurpers in my book, The Choice. And then you have people who claim to be religious, but they don't have faith in their religion. They don't have faith in, they need to control things. I mean, it's the same thing. Why do people need to be so controlling? Why do people have to impose their will when there is a divine plan? A lot of it has to do with, allowing things to happen. And the common denominator here between NPCs and what I'm talking about with chaos and control and people wanting control is a lack of connection to one's soul. Religious people don't have a internalized connection to God, most of them, because their religion forbids it. Their religion says they're the middleman between people and God. And so, there's that. And then people who don't believe in God or a soul, well, they're not going to have any contact with their soul. Most of them. Maybe some of them will, and they don't really know it. And so if you're not connected to your soul, you're not connected to God internally, you become an NPC. You become someone who is completely, disconnected from the true source of things, and you're just plugged into the beast, into the system. You're just a part of the background of the video games, right? You might have a starring role some period of time in your life, wherever it is, but you're still just an NPC in the bigger picture of things. You're not evolving. You're not, spiritually sovereign. You don't have a sovereignty of your soul. You are somebody who is, disconnected from your true power, your true source of power, your true source, eternal life, and you're just walking around bumping into stuff. I mean, that's, no purpose, no goal, a slave to your appetites, and just, not standing out in any possible way. Just, a cog in the wheel. The heartfulness system of meditation, which I talk about quite often, is a way to create a internalized relationship with one's heart, with one's soul, and the divinity within someone. And it activates, something within a person, a spiritual essence, and it makes a person dynamic in certain ways. I mean, people might resist that, or people might not connect with it, even though it's happening inside of them, but it's there. And over a period of time, the changes that occur, and the consciousness that's there, and the awareness of a spiritual goal that emerges, not from some, philosophical point of view, but from internal craving to return to the source, which is something that happens to people who do the system correctly, that their hearts crave to go back to the source. And when that happens to people, now they have a true purpose, and their life has more meaning, right? You wake up with a goal. When you have a goal, it's just different. If you have something to accomplish on a daily basis, when you have something to believe in, you're going somewhere, it's a lot better than when you don't have a goal. Having a purpose or a goal is so much better than not having one. It's just, you can't even factor it. Like, I've gone through periods of my life where I didn't have a goal, and then what are you doing? You're just being an NPC. You're just, sitting there sucking up resources and not contributing anything, not having a purpose or a reason for being. And so, I can't even imagine going back to that, like for those periods of time where I didn't have a purpose or a goal. And again, before that, my goal was something, like being a good basketball player or something, right? I mean, it was, it wasn't something substantial. Like if you're trying to get a job, or you're trying to, get something, it's some, you're trying to have a big Super Bowl party, and your goal is to, whatever it is, right? Your goal is to go on vacation or something. Yeah, you have things to look forward to and to work for, and goals are good, to graduate school and, get married. I mean, these are, good goals, but to have an internal goal that has to do with your spiritual evolution that is beyond this life. It's something that is a continuation from, something that's eternal, your eternal pursuit to go back to the source and work for and serve the divine essence, and work for and serve God. That's something that takes you beyond this life, right? This is something that you're doing eternally, and it's, a true blessing. And so having that in your life is amazing, especially when you didn't have anything before. And I went from that, right? Where I was just walking along lost at NPC, with very little consciousness, no purpose, no reason for being. And then when I started doing the heartfulness system, and this goal reawoke in me, this internalized goal, it's a feeling, it's a part of a, something that is a craving inside of you. It's not, like I said, so much words or philosophy or ideas. It's a feeling inside of you. And you wake up and you have, now that is a part of your other goals. It's a part of your physical life, your material life, that underlying your physical and material goals, you now have this, general purpose of returning to the source and also serving God by doing your work and by performing your duties and things. So you're serving God at the same time as you're living your material life. And, again, I mean, it's a lot better than being an NPC or a ghoul or, anything else. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano. Definitely pointing from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.